flip in a big hurry if this thing goes that way on Sunday.
The only pushback I would have is, even if the Ravens lost this weekend, I still see them being the favorite to win their division.
Yes.
Right. Whereas I look at the AFC West, and I still think the Chiefs will be fine in this moment. However, their division is a lot tougher to win, and they've also lost two in their division. So that's my only concern.
That has been their advantage for a long time.
Sure.
One of the reasons the Patriots had the run they had was they dominated in their division. And Mahomes and company have dominated in their division. Most of those teams have been down. They're up now.
That's right.
The Chargers are up. The Broncos are way better than their record would indicate. And the Raiders are better than they were.
Right.
So that is going to be harder for them. But if I were to say the Ravens, I'm not worried about them, but the Chiefs I am, what would you say to that?
I agree. Here's why I would say that I'm not concerned with the Ravens is because they can score a lot of points, and they have. You're going to win games in the NFL by outscoring. And their defense, even if they're not the same as they were, they can hold teams down and you can outscore them. The Chiefs, for me, are a concern because they haven't shown any life offensively. You know, they can't run the ball. They don't have explosive players. Worthy's hurt. You know, they're not getting guys back for a while. What are you literally afraid of, right? Like Hollywood. I mean, that's no disrespect. It's just there's one guy, or it's Kelce underneath. Everybody kind of understands the offense. They have asked so much of Patrick Mahomes, and the truth is, the last 2 years, they've won games and put themselves in a position because of their defense. But when you can't score efficiently, you're going to have a problem. That's why I would say I'm more worried.
I think I got to give Dan Orlovsky some credit. He said on NFL Live, he made a good point that I hadn't considered, is that the Ravens constructed their team to be fast and to play against the Bengals and to play against the Chiefs. Those kind of high-powered offenses or potentially high-powered offenses in the AFC. It's a real bad matchup when you go up against the NFC-style teams that run the ball really physically. I'm interested to see how the Ravens adjust when they play the Rams coming forward, but they have to win this Chiefs game because then this is who you're matched up against. This is the team that you're constructed to beat. Your offense can score with them. Your defense has a ton of great guys in the secondary.
And you think for the Ravens why it's so important, they would have lost to the Bills and Chiefs.
Right.
That is, you know, so that's a death nail for whatever you're trying to get.
Home field advantage probably, but I think Kmart makes the important
for sure
point.
that.
For the longest time, we've looked at the AFC North and said, well, that's the toughest division. Those days are long since behind us. By the way, quick note, the Chiefs at home with an extra day of rest are a 2.5-point underdog in this game against the Ravens. One of the really good games. Look, Ravens-Chiefs, one of them is going to be 1-3 by the time we go to sleep on Sunday night. What's your first impression?
These explosive plays from the Chiefs, if they're going to find a way to create some of those against the Ravens, I think it's going to be hard to score otherwise, and I think the Ravens won't have as much trouble scoring as the Chiefs will. They're going to have to find some ways to make these drives successful but shorter, because I think the more time they're on the field, the more difficulty they're going to have.
So I'm looking at the Ravens defensively. The pass rush, can you get after Patrick? They're missing Matabike, they're missing Jair Alexander, they're missing Kyle Van Noy against the Lions. To me, the lack of a pass rush when you're going against a team that has offensive line issues, that the Ravens should be able to win in the trenches.
All right, we'll keep an eye on all these games. And then one you wouldn't have thought was the most interesting game of the weekend, Giants-Chargers. Like the general consensus, the conventional wisdom that I've heard at this desk over the last couple of days and even the last couple of weeks has been Ravens will be fine. Chiefs, we're really worried about. Is that the right way to look at this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the right way to look at it. I think both the Ravens' problems seem smaller and more fixable. And what Kimberly pointed out in the first hour is that their division is not as scary as the Chiefs' division looks right now. The Ravens are still in position to win their division. The Chiefs are going to have a hard time catching up to the Chargers and the Broncos.
Can I counter my brilliant point from earlier?
Your own point. So Kimberly is now going to argue with herself.
So on the flip side, we talk about the Chiefs and, their offense, just like you're not scared of anyone. They don't have their full complement of players.
Right. That's true.
The Ravens do. And yet they are making mistakes that I want to say they're uncharacteristic. I understand on defense. I understand that they didn't have Kyle and Matabike and Jair. But offensively, you're looking at Derrick Henry. You don't expect him to fumble 3 straight games in a row, 3 games where it is at a critical juncture of the game. You're not expecting. Lamar has been fantastic, but there's still been miscues. So I'm arguing this. I don't really believe it.
No,
but
your point is well taken. Your point is well taken. The Chiefs do have the cavalry coming to some degree, which will be Rasheed Rice after 6 games And at some point, here's Xavier Worthy back healthy. The question is, can they keep afloat that long? You lose this game, you're 1-3. 1-3 is pretty close to buried in the NFL, especially in a division where, as Neek said and Kmart said earlier, the Chargers look really good. The Broncos should have won certainly that one game that they lost against the Colts and whatever else it is. So the division's going to be tough. The Chiefs have to tread water until they get their guys back. The question is, can they do it?
I mean, because you think they lose, they're 1-3, then the Chargers have already beat them. So,
right.
So now you're actually half games, another half game. Like you're digging a hole that's going to be tough to get out of. And when I think about the Ravens, I think about their ability to put up points, and I do understand that the fumbling issue and at the end of games not being able to close games out, they're going to put points up. At some point, Lamar Jackson, that offense, they're going to put points up. It's a whole lot easier to win scoring than it is, trying to trudge through and stop people all the time.
I think we should just say this out loud as well. But Cindy, we all made picks on the game. The Chiefs are at home. They have an extra day of rest. They're a 2.5-point underdog in this game is remarkable. I'm just not willing to give up on Mahomes and Reid, which is why I'll put the pick for the Chiefs, but I certainly don't do so with any real confidence. I feel like we should say out loud, I'm starting to hear, I feel like, little whispers about John Harbaugh. Mm-hmm. John Harbaugh's been the coach of the Ravens 18 years. He's in his 18th season. That is a multiple lifetimes in the National Football League. I think he's a great coach. I think he has been a brilliant coach, and I think probably remains a brilliant coach. But it does feel like I'm hearing a little bit of criticism, a little bit of could it be approaching time, that kind of thing. Are you hearing any of that?
Internally, no. Extra, obviously, the fan base is frustrated because you have a team that, as talented as it is underperforming, especially in these big critical moments. I think with the John Harbaugh, I think fans sort of feel like, is he the guy? Can he get them to where they want to go? Yes, he's won a Super Bowl, but can he get them now?
Right, it's been a long time.
It's been a long time, but they have the team. But all these things that are happening, whether it be penalties, whether it be, no pass rush, whether it be his conservativeness in pressure moments, fourth and nine.
That's the thing that I think is fair criticism, but you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yes, exactly.
He's a great coach.
Right.
Tell him to be more aggressive on fourth down.
Right.
Don't blow it up. Like, you have a very stable, well-run, interconnected organization from Aussie on down, and this coach is a part of it, and he's brought you a lot of success. And year in and year out, it's one of the best teams in football. If you want to tweak some things, okay, but I don't think that it's time for an overhaul.
I'm with you. I remember when there was all this talk that he was going to get fired before they went to Lamar and everything changed. I was begging for it. I was like, please let the Jets get John Harbaugh. That's exactly what an unstable franchise needs. All right, we continue. Big number.
Concerning right now, the Chiefs' offense or that Ravens' defense?
It's the Chiefs' offense. And it's the Chiefs' offense because right now, one, they don't have all their weapons. Two, I think the offensive philosophy needs to update a little bit. And Andy Reid has been regarded as one of the best play callers, offensive minds in the league for a long time. Done a phenomenal job with Pat. His team has won. They've been to AFC Championship after AFC Championship. But this year, it looks a little bit more mortal. And I think offensively, they need one of those explosive outings in order to tell everyone that the Chiefs are finally figuring it out. I think Baltimore is in a situation last year. We saw Baltimore. We saw people. I don't know if y'all remember this because we are here and now in this season. Baltimore got the ball thrown on them all over the place last year. This defense was as bad. They were giving up as many points per game as they're giving up right now. So we've seen this from the Baltimore Ravens before. Kansas City last year won these close games. And if you're telling me that this offense is not going to afford them to play some games where they have a comfortable lead, the way it's trending, I got to have concern about them. The Ravens coming off a loss, the Kansas City Chiefs coming off a win, Chiefs offense not doing well, the Ravens offense is rolling. And I don't think anybody wants to say it, but the Chiefs defense ain't the same either. So I have more concern about the Chiefs right now than I do about the Baltimore Ravens. With that being said, it only takes 1 week for 15. It only takes 1 week for him to see
We've been waiting,
and to get it going.
Which is exactly why my answer to this question is the Ravens. I disagree with you. Rashee Rice will be back in 3 games. Xavier Worthy's probably going to be back for this weekend's game. Okay, and we all know that when you're bereft of weapons, what can you do as the quarterback? Really, 28th in terms of completion percentage? We're talking about Patrick Mahomes. You really think that's him? Mm-hmm. Haven't we seen drop passes? Haven't we seen juggled passes? Haven't we seen guys not being able to get open? A lot of it ain't him. You understand? It's what he's having to work with. That's why if I was the Chiefs, I know this is an unpopular position, Doggy, Swagoo, Pete, but I got to tell y'all, if I were the Chiefs, I'd try to get back Tyreek Hill. I really would. Mm-hmm. I really would. I understand all the noise that comes with him. But in Kansas City, this man's a Super Bowl champion. And Patrick Mahomes was electrifying because you had that brother to spread the field, and you had, and not only that, think about the freedom it gives Travis Kelce. We might not be talking about Travis Kelce in the way that we've been lamenting what we've seen from him. If Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown were all out there at the same time when he was out there, or dare I say, if you had a Tyreek Hill to help spread the field where you couldn't key on him so much. I look at Baltimore, it's an entirely different animal. Their defense is trash. It looks horrible. And when you have a defense that is this bad, inexplicably so, I might add, you do find yourself scratching your head and wondering because Baltimore's offense, you know, is going to be there. But can you stop it? Are you going to be able to stop Kansas City when it counts? When Mahomes gets his weapons back? Are you going to be able to stop Josh Allen in Buffalo? Are you going to be able to do that? Those are the two teams that are standing in Baltimore's way. And you've shown us nothing on the defensive side of the ball to have any kind of faith in you being able to neutralize them so you could propel yourself to new heights. I would say the answer to this question is the Ravens.
I think it's the Chiefs. I'm with you. But and one thing I wanted to say, what a play Mahomes made at the end of the half at 6-6 when he made sure that Giants
get the pass.
There is not a quarterback that I've ever seen who would make that play. That was an incredible play he made. He made a bad play.
Yep.
Look at this
right
play.
Yep.
This is an incredible play. Now, they made sure we all knew about it, Collinsworth and Mike. But, I mean, yeah, they were right. But what a play he made. That saved the game. It was 6-6.
100%.
Oh, my God, that's a championship-level football play. That's why I love Mahomes.
But that's also why you give them grace.
That's why you give a pass. Absolutely right. You give a chance.
Chris Collinsworth, they made sure we knew about it. Had they not, you would have been dedicating your show Monday to
Stephen, let me ask you
we didn't talk enough about it.
We didn't talk enough about it. I mean, what are they doing? What are they doing? That's their job. They don't have to be on the field for Christ's sake. At least you can do it. Point it out.
Because you disagree with me and Mad Dog that it's the Chiefs, right?
Yes.
Are you taking into account that the Ravens in those two games probably played teams that are going to be Super Bowl contenders? Does that matter to you?
Yes, and here's the reason why. Because it's been your Achilles heel in the past. And so once again, it's that way again. Buffalo, right. You understand? And then obviously you look at what happened to Detroit. Those caliber teams, it's not like they're losing the scrubs. Mm-hmm. We haven't looked at the Baltimore Ravens and say, oh, they lost to an inferior team. We've looked at them, and when they've gone down to the big horses, okay? Well, that's what's going to be waiting for you. So you got to show that that's not going to faze you. Yeah. That you're ready, you're going to be on your P's and Q's, and you're going to be able to do whatever is necessary in order to get over the hump.
So they were dominant in the Buffalo game for 3 3/4 of a quarter, right?
Right. Winning this game.
And they were winning this game against Detroit. Mm-hmm. That means nothing to you.
No, I didn't say it means nothing to me. I'm saying it means something, but in the negative. They found a way to lose. They found a way to lose in the playoffs. They found a way to lose these two regular season games.
The Chiefs are 1-2.
I say they found a way to lose.
But they 1-2 too. Who you think better?
No, I think the Ravens are better.
Right. So why are you more concerned about them?
Because of their defense. And I think that ultimately, the Chiefs are going to be better. Once Rice and Worthy are back, I think they're going to be better.
We saw the Ravens get better from a bad defense last year.
Yeah, but I'm saying to you is they got to show it to me now because I haven't seen their defense this bad in a long time.
You always want to jump off the boat, bro. You always want to jump off the train.
You know, hey, I ain't trying to swim.
The team's better, but I'm more concerned about it.
This Tyquan Thornton looks like a nice number 3. Those
very
guys
good
get back. He's playing well.
That's true.
And Tyreek, as much as it was bombastic, they love him in Kansas City still. I know those guys in the front office, Andy Reid, they still love him as a person too.
He's spectacular. If I'm Kansas City, I would do everything that I can to go and get Tyreek Hill back.
You got to explore it. That's a lot of money you got to pay him.
I know that you got to be careful about it, but I would explore it.
Okay.
Let's get in for a quick take again.
Yes.
Here. The Mets have.
The Chiefs are facing a perfect storm of problems that no one wants to admit out loud, but which could blow up in their faces at any moment, while everyone is celebrating that narrow victory against the Giants as if it were the Super Bowl. The harsh reality is that Kansas City has serious cracks in its foundation that could cause everything to crumble if not fixed immediately. And worst of all, some of these issues are ticking time bombs, and when you understand the magnitude of what is happening behind the scenes, from season-ending injuries to performance issues that are turning into an epidemic, you will realize that the next few games will define whether this dynasty stays alive or begins to collapse before our eyes. Before we dive deep into this analysis that will change your perspective on the Chiefs, I need you to do one thing: stop everything you are doing and write in the comments where you are watching this from and how many years you have been a part of the Chiefs kingdom. It's not just my curiosity, there's a very specific reason behind it. I bet 90% of Chiefs fans still haven't realized the real severity of what our team is facing behind the scenes with these injuries and performance issues. Seriously, most are only seeing the surface and celebrating a victory that was more a scare than a dominant performance. So if you are one of those 10% who really understand real American football, prove it to me by writing your city and explaining to me what the biggest problem is that the Chiefs need to solve before the game against Baltimore. The injury situation with the wide receivers is becoming a critical issue that goes far beyond what most people imagine. Xavier Worthy is dealing with a dislocated shoulder and a completely torn labrum, specifically a slap lesion, which is like tearing that cartilage ring that stabilizes the entire shoulder joint. According to Johns Hopkins Medical, this type of injury either needs to be trimmed or reattached to the top of the socket, and the best way to do that is with arthroscopic surgery because that area is difficult to reach with open surgery through a large incision. The brutal problem here is that Worthy's injury will not improve without this surgery, and if he gets the surgery, his season is over right there. No one wants that. Not him, not the Chiefs, not the fans. So if he's not going to have this surgery, it's simply a matter of pain management from now on. It's a question of whether Worthy feels 100% comfortable playing through the pain, and he will have to get to that point because it likely will not get any less painful. That is simply the nature of a torn labrum. It doesn't heal on its own without that arthroscopic surgery. The honest analysis of this situation is that as long as Worthy cannot fully practice, it will be difficult to see him play a full game on the field. And obviously, the Chiefs did not practice on Tuesday because it is a rest day in the NFL, so we will see. Tomorrow, where Xavier Worthy is, connecting this with the Jalen Royals situation, things are a bit more optimistic. Andy Reid made it clear that Royals just returned, and he had him there as a kind of emergency in case they absolutely needed him. His first week of practice in a month was last week, and he is a rookie, so this was really his first game suiting it up. He will continue to work on it, and it's great to have him back. This was exactly the response I was expecting to hear about this situation. It seems there is a real plan for Jalen Royals now. He is simply not 100% ready yet. I expect Royals to play a few snaps against Baltimore, and that seems to be the plan. They appear to be gradually increasing his intensity. But while everyone is focused on the receiver injuries, there is an even bigger bomb exploding right under our noses, and no one is talking about it with the seriousness it deserves. Harrison Butker may be becoming a serious problem for this team. He is 3 for 5 on extra points, 7 for 9 on field goals, and of those field goals, both misses were from beyond 40 yards. And it's not just this season that he has had some problems. He is 5 for 9 from beyond 50 yards in his last 18 games, which is just over 50% success rate. And 2025 has been a year where we have seen some fantastic kicking performances all over the league. On Monday night, Jake Bates almost hit from 67 yards, which would have set the NFL record. He had the leg for it entirely. It just went a little wide. Kickers in 2025 across the NFL have attempted 107 field goals from beyond 40 yards and have made 85 of them. That is almost an 80% success rate. From beyond 40 yards now, Harrison Butker is operating at a 66% success rate. This is well below the league average and well below acceptable in my opinion. It would be genuinely better if the organization started to consider alternatives, or at least had a plan B, because you can't count on him to solve this on his own when the pressure mounts in the playoffs. Harrison Butker has to resolve this with urgency. I don't think they will make a mid-season replacement unless things get incredibly bad in this situation, but we cannot afford to let these missed kicks continue to be a problem throughout the season. It is simply not acceptable now. Shifting the focus to what could be our biggest advantage in the game against Baltimore, we have to talk about the massive problems that Derrick Henry is facing. Something we have seen from Baltimore in the last few games, and something we have rarely seen in Derrick Henry's career, is an absolutely massive fumbling problem. All 3 fumbles were, or 2 of them were, critical in the fourth quarter. The one against the Bills loses the game for them. It gave Buffalo an opportunity to go right down the field and win there. And then the one against Detroit last night, if you didn't see it, it lost them an opportunity to win that game. The one against the Cleveland Browns was recovered by Tylan Wallace, but I think when you look at all of this, Derrick Henry has struggled, and it has not just been a fumbling problem. It seems he has finally lost a step. Maybe Father Time is finally catching up with him. He had an excellent week 1, but in weeks 2 and 3, things went in the totally opposite direction. We have some statistics here. 23 carries for Henry in that period, a very good workload, only 73 yards, with an average of 3.1 yards per carry. And of course, he has the 2 fumbles as well, one of which was recovered and the other lost the game against the Detroit Lions. He has fumbled in every game this season, twice in the fourth quarter, but there are more problems for him as well. Let's talk about advanced statistics here. Let's get a little advanced and talk about his average yards after contact, something he does exceptionally well throughout his career. Career average of 3.6 yards after contact. We all know him as King Henry, the guy who just runs through tackles. But this year, less than 2 yards after contact. And I know it doesn't seem like a massive difference, 3.6 to 1.9, but it is. I believe that this drop in Henry's production is a gigantic opportunity that the Chiefs need to exploit mercilessly, especially with the defensive line managing to put pressure on the pocket. Every carry, this is 2 yards less for Derrick Henry. And forced missed tackles, another way for him to get extra yards. He has only 4 in 3 games this season. When you go back to last season, he had 87 for the whole year. That puts him on a pace of 5 per game. So he is having more difficulty running through tackles this season and creating that extra yardage that makes him so valuable. And I think that is a big key for our defense, to limit his opportunities to do that when we play the Ravens in week 4. Connecting perfectly with this Henry situation, we absolutely have to discuss the importance that Isaiah Likely and Nnamdi Madubuike may not play in our week 4 matchup. We are not celebrating injuries at all. I think they are very unfortunate things that happened to 2 key players for the Baltimore Ravens, but you absolutely have to recognize the importance of this. I was talking with our Baltimore Ravens host, Joey Peterson, today, and he told me he sees Isaiah Likely as questionable. There is definitely a chance they have their star tight end there. He is fantastic. If you are not familiar with him, I am not going to praise the opponent too much. And Nnamdi Madubuike, however, he sees as much more doubtful. Madubuike is dealing with a pretty serious neck injury. We don't have a ton of details about that situation at this time, but Joey was telling me not to expect to see Madubuike, and that is a huge positive for us. As unfortunate as it is that Madubuike won't play in that sense, we obviously would love to see him there continuing his successful career. If there is one game he has to miss, I'm pretty happy it's ours, because interior pressure has been a massive problem for the Kansas City Chiefs this year. We allowed 15 of our 35 pressures to come from the interior against the Eagles and the Giants. And if you are familiar with pass rush statistics, 40% of your pressure should not be coming from the middle. Typically, the best pass rushers on a defense are the edge rushers, not the interior guys. Typically, that is going to be the source of the vast majority of your pressure. So our interior offensive line has to take advantage of Nnamdi Madubuike not being there. We have to be able to impose ourselves in the passing and running game. We have to be able to protect Patrick Mahomes, create running lanes for Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt, and establish the ground game. Talking about that victory against the Giants, we need to be very honest about what really happened in that game. The Chiefs won, but it was not a dominant performance at all. It was a winning performance against a really, really bad team. And it is not so much what the Chiefs defense did against the Giants offense. They did what they had to do. They couldn't do much more. I mean, they shut them down. They took away everything the Giants wanted to do. They couldn't run the ball. They couldn't play deep. Once again, 10 out of 10. No observations on the defense. But the offense couldn't establish the run. I really think the best thing you could say is that they dominated on third downs, but again, they should have dominated on third downs. The problem for me is that they didn't dominate the line of scrimmage when they had the ball. They didn't really dominate the Giants' secondary. They didn't dominate running the ball. The backfield is still out of sync, so there is still a lot to fix, and now they are going against a team that is much better than the New York Giants, the Baltimore Ravens. And if they come with the same performance they brought to New York, they will not beat the Baltimore Ravens. They have to keep stepping up. The thing that really stands out to me is that Patrick Mahomes changed that game with a defensive play, a defensive play even. Don't get me wrong, he specifically threw the ball backwards. You don't want to do that, and he did it twice in what seemed like 5 plays. I know it was a few more, but it felt like it was only a difference of 5 plays throwing backwards twice, something he usually doesn't do, but he saved that game with a defensive play by taking the ball away, getting it back from the Giants. It would be genuinely impressive if the offensive line could provide that same consistent protection against a much more dangerous team like Baltimore, because against the Giants they had moments, but they need a full 60 minutes of it, because if the Giants recover that and walk into the end zone, they are only 5 yards from the end zone at that point. Walk into the end zone, that game is completely different, and who knows how it ends. But when you look at how the offense played, they were able to make plays when they absolutely had to. Mahomes was able to make plays when he absolutely had to on offense. But the thing that stands out to me is that you look at how things are starting to come together in some ways. Offensively, they are still stagnant, not making the plays you want and too many incompletions. But Mahomes is starting to get time. And Matt, I think that's one of the things that stood out when you start to look at the offensive line. I saw a PFF statistic that shows the percentage of pressure allowed when put on an island alone. And you have 2 Chiefs tackles who are right at the top of that list in Josh Simmons and Jawan Taylor. They are not allowing pressure when put on an island. Don't get me wrong. They have given up pressure, but they are not allowing it when put on an island, and that's what Kansas City wants to do. Jawan Taylor's numbers are really interesting because obviously now everyone has their pitchforks ready for Jawan Taylor, and numbers like that say they probably shouldn't have their pitchforks ready because in some aspects he hasn't been that bad. Are the penalties a problem? Of course. He had 1 penalty on Sunday, so will you live with 1 penalty? Of course you will. Now, could he have been flagged for more? Maybe. So it might be one of those things you got away with against the Giants. Maybe you won't get away with it against another team, with another officiating crew. You don't know. But again, I don't even think the problem is isolated to Jawan Taylor. But I think that number illustrates a problem that this offense seems to have, which is that their offensive line is kind of operating as 5 individuals now and not operating as a unit. And that is expected a little when you have a lot of youth on the left side of the line, guys who are not used to playing with each other, who don't have that communication sorted out, that aspect sorted out. Both Kingsley and Simmons, for the most part, are used to playing alone. They are playing with new teammates, but they are also not used to some of the combos they are seeing, some of the stunts, twists, all those movements that are being thrown at them, and I even include Taylor in that a little. He is still dealing with that knee and ankle issue, so I'm not sure if he's 100%. He looked really uncomfortable at times on that turf. You are definitely hoping that he will feel more comfortable on the grass back at Arrowhead. Transitioning to the defense, which finally got turnovers and showed some interesting tactical changes, we have to talk about how to maintain that momentum. It was a really interesting game plan against the Giants because you might have seen the next-gen stats. I think the Chiefs had 78% of the time on dropbacks playing split safeties. So you are playing different coverages on each side of the field. And the Chiefs have done that in the past. They have never done it at that level. And Spagnuolo will tell you, they are a pattern matching team. So they do some things a little differently than some other teams in the NFL. But they have never done it at that level. But to do that, you have to have a few things. And one is a bunch of safeties who can play. And Chris Rowland-Wallace and Jaden Hicks both saw a lot more time. Jaden Hicks played more snaps. And that was true even before Brian Cook got hurt. He was playing more than Brian Cook was, which could be a sign of things to come. And I think that's a good sign because Jaden Hicks is going to be a really good player. But the other thing you have to have, you couldn't do that without Nick Bolton. And the Giants game in particular, for me it was simply, this is why you hear the Chiefs. You brought Nick Bolton back and paid him because you have to have that communication with your Mike linebacker to keep the secondary organized and knowing what everyone is and what they are doing. And Nick Bolton had a great great game, 14 tackles. He played with the lights on against the Giants. I believe that 30 snaps is definitely not enough for Chris Roland Wallace. He needs to be on the field a lot more. The threat of having a center field over the top can force more turnovers even if he is not making the play directly. If you want to continue producing some of those, whether he is actually making the play or not, the threat of having a center field over the top I think is something that can force more turnovers. I want to see more of him in that combination. If you are going to use the same strategy against the Ravens, I imagine they will do things a little differently. They will mix things up. You still know that Spags' motto will be similar to what he has had in recent weeks. It is to keep the quarterback in the pocket and not let them beat you deep and not put the ball in Lamar Jackson's hands and challenge him to beat you. There is a lot of discussion happening about that sideline situation between Travis Kelce and Andy Reid, but let's be honest about the real context. Kelce yelled at and bumped into Reid during the Chiefs' victory over the Giants, and now everyone is talking about it. Reid made it clear. I love Travis's passion, man. We need more of that. He knows when to take his foot off the gas and when to push too. Sometimes I have to be the policeman. This is not coach talk. It's Reid being real about lighting a fire under an offense that was struggling. Kelce's frustration is understandable. He is 35 years old, not the same playmaker he was before. He is running on Worthy, making mistakes he usually doesn't, not in sync with Mahomes like before. And the offense as a whole is spinning its wheels without its main weapons, without its two top wide receivers. There is more focus on him. There are not as many threats to cover, so there are more eyes on him now. This is not like the Super Bowl 58 shove where Kelce admitted he went too far and unbalanced Reid. This time it was more moderate, and that's why I believe it was more a way to wake up a dead team. And with Kelce probably in his final season, he is giving his all to make it count. He still cares about the game and the team's success. So with Worthy and Rice potentially coming back, Mahomes' chemistry with Kelce can be resolved.